Imagine standing at the edge of something new. Maybe it's a big presentation, a crucial exam, or a conversation you've been dreading. Your heart pounds, your mind races, and that familiar sense of anxiety creeps in, whispering stories about everything that could possibly go wrong. In these moments, it's easy for our thoughts to spiral, painting worst-case scenarios in vivid colors. But what if you could step back, look those fears in the eye, and calmly ask, what's the worst that could really happen, and could I handle it? Nice. This mindset isn't just wishful thinking, it's the foundation of a powerful approach called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. CBT is grounded in the idea that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are interconnected. When we learn to question our anxious thoughts and replace them with more balanced, realistic perspectives, we can reduce fear and regain control over our lives. Let's start by exploring the power of worst-case scenario thinking. It may sound counterintuitive, but taking the time to thoughtfully consider the worst possible outcome can actually help lessen anxiety. When worries are left unchecked, they tend to grow in the shadows of our imagination. But when we shine a light on them, breaking them down logically, we often find that our fears are not as overwhelming as they once seemed. Suppose you're anxious about giving a presentation at work. Your mind jumps to the extremes. What if I forget my words? What if everyone laughs at me? What if I lose my job? These thoughts are distressing, but instead of letting them swirl uncontrollably, pause and examine them. Ask yourself, if I really did forget my words, what would happen? Maybe there would be a moment of awkward silence, but chances are you'd recover, check your notes, and continue. The likelihood of being laughed at or losing your job because of a stumble is incredibly low. By walking through the worst-case scenario and planning how you'd respond, you reclaim power from your fears. You begin to realize that, yes, while setbacks are possible, they are rarely as catastrophic as our anxious minds predict. And more importantly, you'd likely find a way to cope. Humans are remarkably resilient. History is filled with stories of people who faced adversity and adapted, even thrived. But this mindset doesn't stop at imagining the worst. The next critical step is to assess how likely that outcome truly is. Our brains are wired to overestimate danger, an evolutionary leftover from a time when being hyper-alert could mean the difference between life and death. Today, though, this tendency can lead us to see threats where there are none, feeding our anxiety with exaggerated scenarios. When you catch yourself catastrophizing, ask, what evidence do I have that this outcome will actually happen? How often have things really gone as badly as I feared in the past? More often than not, you'll recognize that the probability is low. Perhaps you've given dozens of presentations before, and even if you've made mistakes, the consequences were never dire. By weighing your fears against reality, you can begin to replace irrational thoughts with more balanced, truthful ones. This process, identifying unhelpful patterns of thinking and challenging them, is at the heart of CBT. But CBT isn't just about recognizing irrational fears. It's also about problem solving. Once you've identified a potential risk, think practically. What steps could I take to prevent it? What can I do if it does happen? For example, if you're worried about forgetting your words during a presentation, you might prepare cue cards, practice with a friend, or have a glass of water nearby in case you need a pause. By focusing on actionable solutions, you shift from feeling helpless to feeling empowered. Over time, this approach rewires the way you respond to anxiety. Instead of reacting automatically with fear, you learn to pause, reflect, and respond with reason and self-compassion. You become your own therapist, offering yourself the understanding, encouragement, and guidance that you need. Of course, this is a skill that takes practice. Old habits of thought are stubborn, and it's normal for anxiety to resurface, especially in stressful situations. But each time you walk through the steps, naming your fear, evaluating its likelihood, planning your response, you reinforce new, healthier patterns in your brain. Gradually, your confidence grows, and anxiety loses its grip. It's important to remember that anxiety is a natural part of being human. Everyone experiences it at times, and it's not something to be ashamed of. In fact, a little anxiety can even be helpful. motivating us to prepare and pay attention. The goal isn't to eliminate anxiety entirely, but to manage it in a way that lets us live fully and authentically. Sometimes, anxiety can feel overwhelming or persistent, interfering with daily life. When this happens, reaching out to a mental health professional can be incredibly helpful. Trained therapists can guide you through CBT and other evidence-based techniques, offering support tailored to your unique needs. But even on your own, you can start using these techniques. Next time you feel anxiety bubbling up, take a few deep breaths and walk yourself through the process. What am I afraid of? What's the worst that could happen? How likely is it, really? If it did happen, how would I cope? What practical steps can I take to reduce the risk? As you do this, remember to be gentle with yourself. Anxiety thrives on self-criticism. It shrinks in the face of self-kindness. Remind yourself of times you've faced challenges before and come through. Celebrate small victories, like making that phone call or speaking up in a meeting, even if your voice trembled. Progress is measured not in the absence of fear, but in the courage to move forward despite it. By combining realistic thinking with proactive problem-solving, you build resilience for life's uncertainties. You come to trust that, no matter what happens, you have the tools to handle it. And when you do, anxiety loses its power to dictate your choices. So the next time your mind starts racing with what-ifs, pause and give yourself the gift of clarity. Think it through, challenge your fears, and plan your response. You may discover that the worst is unlikely, the best is possible, and in between lies a world of opportunity, ready for you to explore with confidence and calm. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and keeps you updated with our latest content. Thanks for your support. Please tune in for our coming videos on mental health.